Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan was born out of defeat, resentment, and fear. In 1865, right after the American Civil War, the southern United States was in chaos. The Confederacy had collapsed, slavery had been abolished, and millions of formerly enslaved Black Americans were now legally free. For many white Southerners who had supported the Confederacy, this wasn't just a political loss. It was a complete disruption of the social order they had always known, and some refused to accept that. That's where the Ku Klux Klan emerged. What started as a secret society quickly turned into something far darker. A coordinated campaign of terror aimed at reversing the progress of Reconstruction. The goal was clear: restore white supremacy and suppress the political and social advancement of Black Americans. And they were willing to use extreme violence to achieve it. The Klan targeted Black individuals who were trying to live freely for the first time. Voting, working, getting an education, and building communities. They also targeted white Americans who supported equality, including teachers, activists, and politicians. Anyone seen as a threat became a target. The violence was brutal and deeply personal. Homes were invaded at night, families were dragged outside and beaten, and many people were tortured and murdered. Lynchings became one of the most horrifying symbols of this era, and these acts were not hidden. They were public. Crowds sometimes gathered, and in some cases, even photographs were taken. The goal was not just to kill, it was to send a message. This is what happens if you step out of line. For Black Americans, everyday life became a constant calculation of risk. Voting could mean death. Speaking out could put your family in danger. Trying to build something could result in everything being destroyed overnight. Entire communities were silenced through fear. One of the most disturbing realities is that the Klan was not always operating outside the system. In many areas, local authorities ignored the violence or participated in it. Some police officers were members. Some politicians openly supported the group. Some courts refused to hold perpetrators accountable. This meant that for many victims, there was no protection, no justice, and no one to turn to. But that does not mean there was no resistance. Black communities resisted in every way they could, organizing, rebuilding schools and churches, and creating networks of support and protection. There were also allies: journalists who exposed the violence, activists who risked their lives, and at times, the federal government, which intervened to try to suppress the Klan. These efforts weakened the group in certain periods, but the damage had already been done. Generations lived under terror, and even after losing power, the Klan returned in the early 20th century, larger, more visible, and still driven by the same ideology of hate. The reality is complex. Some supported it openly, others remained silent, and many fought against it. But one thing is clear: the actions of the Ku Klux Klan caused immense suffering, injustice, and lasting trauma, and they are widely condemned as one of the darkest chapters in U.S. history. MS-13. The story of MS-13 does not begin in the United States. It begins with war. During the 1970s and 1980s, El Salvador was going through a brutal civil war, marked by extreme violence, poverty, and social collapse. MS-13 organized itself into smaller groups known as cliques, which operate with a level of independence while maintaining a shared identity. Over time, its presence expanded beyond the United States into other countries, especially in Central America, creating a transnational network. Authorities have made numerous attempts to combat the group, including police operations, arrests, and deportations. However, these measures have not always fully solved the problem. In some cases, deported members contributed to the expansion of the gang in other countries, and the people who suffer the most are ordinary individuals, families, residents of affected neighborhoods, and young people growing up in environments with limited options. The actions of MS-13 are widely condemned for their violence and the real, lasting harm they cause to communities. And despite ongoing efforts to dismantle it, the group still exists, remains active, and continues to operate in different regions. Aryan Brotherhood. Unlike the other groups, the Aryan Brotherhood was born inside prisons. In the 1960s, within the California prison system, racial tensions were high and violence was constant. Prisoners formed groups as a way to survive, and institutional control was often insufficient to maintain order. It was in this environment that the Aryan Brotherhood emerged. At first, it functioned as a protection group for white inmates, but like many other groups, that quickly changed. The organization became more structured, more disciplined, and significantly more violent. Inside prisons, the group began to control territories, enforce rules, and eliminate anyone considered a threat. Loyalty was absolute, and punishment for betrayal was severe. Violence was not just a consequence, it was a tool of control. What makes the Aryan Brotherhood different is that its influence extends beyond prison walls. The group developed ways to continue its operations outside. Orders can be given from inside prison and carried out in the outside world. involving activities such as drug trafficking, extortion, and contract killings. This makes the group particularly difficult to dismantle, since imprisoning members does not necessarily stop their operations. Its structure is closed, based on extreme loyalty and strict internal organization. Inside prisons, many inmates live under its influence, facing limited choices, align with the group, or become a target. Outside, its impact continues to be felt through ongoing criminal activity and networks. Authorities have spent decades trying to dismantle the Aryan Brotherhood, but its adaptability and internal structure make this a difficult task. Like the other groups, it still exists, remains active, and continues to operate both inside and outside the prison system. And it is important to be clear, its actions, like those of the Ku Klux Klan and MS-13, are defined by violence, crime, and real human suffering. They have affected thousands of lives and continue to be widely condemned. LEME. In 1957, within the heavy air and the scent of cheap disinfectant in the corridors of the Duell Vocational Institution in Tracy, California, a pact was sealed that would change the history of crime. 13 inmates, led by a man named Luis Huerobuf Flores, didn't just want to survive. They wanted to rule. They were young, mostly of Mexican descent, tired of being targets for other factions. There, between the concrete and the steel, they founded LEME. The name is simply the Spanish phonetic for the letter M, but for those living in the system, it is the seal of death. What began as a self-protection militia quickly transformed into an ethnic aristocracy of violence. Flores realized that true strength didn't lie in defending against external enemies, but in subjugating his own people through absolute fear. The cruelty of LEME is not impulsive, it is administrative. They do not kill because they are angry, they kill because it is corporate policy. They established a shadow government that operates with more efficiency than almost any legitimate state agency. The fundamental method of control is the tax. Imagine a small-time drug dealer on the streets of East LA, just trying to provide for his family. To LEME, this man is merely a resource to be harvested. If he sells in their territory, he must pay a percentage to the carnales, the made members who are locked away in maximum security cells. If he refuses, his name goes on the green light list. Once your name is on that list, you are a walking corpse. Every soldier of the street gangs, the Sureños, has the obligation to execute you on sight. If they don't, they themselves become the target. To understand the magnitude of this power, one only needs to look at the 1992 peace mandate. In a move that displayed terrifying power, the Mexican mafia issued an order from within the prisons. Drive-by shootings in Los Angeles had to stop. The reason? The accidental deaths of children were bringing too much police heat to the drug trade. Within days, the shootings stopped. It wasn't because the criminals became saints, but because they feared the EAM more than the LAPD. Their execution methods are legendary. Inside the yard, they use the accordion technique. Multiple inmates stab the victim simultaneously from different angles. This prevents the victim from defending themselves and makes it impossible for guards to identify who delivered the fatal blow. The story of Ernest "Rocky" Miranda serves as a haunting epitaph. Rocky was a legend, a man who bled for the EME for decades. In the early 2000s, he decided he wanted out. He wanted to work with the youth, to warn them about the dangers of the life. But in the eyes of the mafia, knowledge is a liability and retirement is a myth. On a sunny afternoon in 2006, as Rocky was trying to live a quiet life, he was gunned down. The Black Hand doesn't care about your past service. It only cares about your current obedience. They reach the top of the hierarchy because they control the one place every criminal fears, the place where everyone eventually ends up, prison.
Hells Angels. In 1948, amidst the post-war disillusionment in Fontana, California, the Hells Angels were born. These were men who had seen the worst of humanity in the cockpits of B-17 bombers or on the beaches of Iwo Jima. They were addicted to the adrenaline of combat and found the quiet suburban life of 1950s America to be a suffocating cage. They traded their flight suits for leather jackets and their rifles for roaring V-twin engines. They identified themselves as the 1%ers, a badge of honor signifying they were the 1% of motorcyclists who didn't give a damn about the law. What the public often ignores is that the Hells Angels are not just a club, they are a corporate paramilitary organization. The strategic cruelty of the Hells Angels is designed to protect their brand and their territory. To become a member, you must survive the prospect phase, a period of years where you are effectively a slave to the members who possess the full patch. You clean the bikes, you guard the clubhouses, and you perform the dirty work to prove your loyalty. It is a psychological deconstruction of the individual. By the time you finally receive your patch, your family is gone, your old friends are strangers, and the club is your only god. They reach the top by monopolizing the trade of methamphetamine. In the 60s and 70s, they were the primary distributors for the entire West Coast. Their violence is explosive and public, intended to serve as a deterrent. Look at the Lennoxville Massacre in 1985, or the Great Nordic Biker War of the 90s, where the Angels used anti-tank missiles and remote-controlled bombs to wipe out their rivals. They don't just fight, they wage war. They monitor police frequencies with military-grade equipment and hire elite lawyers to turn the justice system against itself. The danger of the Hells Angels today lies in their sophistication. They own trademarks and sue corporations that use their logo without permission. Behind the smiles at Christmas charity toy runs, there is a network linked to international arms and human trafficking. They reached their peak because they understood that in America, a criminal organization can survive if it looks like a legitimate business. They are a motorized hydra. You can arrest a chapter president, but the organization, fueled by a billion-dollar drug empire and a code of absolute silence, simply replaces the head and continues to ride. They transform the open road into a lawless territory where the only authority is the sound of their engines, Triads. In 1956, as the political landscape of Taiwan was fracturing, the United Bamboo, or Zhu Lian Bang, was formed. But the true horror of this organization didn't fully manifest until it migrated to the Chinatowns of New York, San Francisco, and Vancouver. While the Mafia or the Hells Angels want you to know who they are, the Triads and their American cousins, the Tongs, thrive in invisibility. They are the masters of the invisible empire. Their origins date back centuries to secret societies in China that fought emperors, but in the modern United States, they have become the most sophisticated criminal financiers on the planet. The cruelty of the Triads is unique because it is transnational. If you owe money to a snakehead, the Asian human smugglers, to be brought into the U.S., you are not the only one at risk. If you miss a payment or go to the police, they don't just come for you, they go for your grandmother in a rural village in the Fujian province. They use the 36 Oaths, a ritual where an initiate pricks their finger and drinks a mixture of blood and wine. This is not just a club membership, it is a contract that binds your soul. Betrayal is punished by death by 1,000 cuts, a metaphorical and sometimes literal promise of a slow and agonizing end. The Triads reach their current status by controlling the flow of the world's most dangerous commodities. From the Golden Triangle heroin of the 80s to the massive fentanyl shipments of today, they are the logistics experts of the underworld. They don't engage in street brawls, they engage in corporate sabotage and political corruption. The case of Raymond Shrimp Boy Chow in San Francisco revealed the terrifying depth of their reach. Chow, while claiming to be a reformed community leader, was linked to the highest levels of the California State Senate, orchestrating weapons deals that involved shoulder-fired missiles. They are dangerous because they are the Silk Road of crime. They facilitate money laundering for Mexican cartels and provide the chemical precursors for the drugs that devastate American streets. Their cruelty is hidden behind the closed doors of massage parlors and illegal gambling dens, where the silence of the community, born from a historical distrust of Western authorities, provides them with the perfect cloak. They reach the top because they realize that the most powerful criminal is the one who owns the bank, the politician, and the silence of the people. They don't need to scream to be feared. Their silence is the most terrifying sound of all. Los ZETAS. In 1999, a shift occurred that redefined brutality on the U.S. border. Los Zetas began as an elite wing of defectors from the Mexican Special Forces, bringing military-grade tactics to the criminal underworld. Unlike traditional gangs, they operate with the precision of a professional army. Their extremism is rooted in psychological terror. They reach the top by introducing the pozole method, dissolving victims in acid to leave no trace, a cruelty designed to erase a person from existence. Within the U.S., they operate through gatekeepers, controlling massive drug corridors with an iron fist. They are dangerous because they don't just kill, they stage massacres as public warnings. They reached where they are by turning the drug trade into a war zone, proving that specialized training in the hands of the soulless is the ultimate weapon. They aren't just a gang, they are a ghost insurgency, proving that once you train a soldier to be a monster, there is no going back.
If you found this video informative and want to support the channel, make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps more than you think and allows us to keep creating content like this. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.